Bilingualism as resource. Now, after the Cold War and after this movement towards globalization and the establishment of international organizations like United Nations, like UNESCO, there was again a movement towards accepting bilingualism not just as a right and to bear with it because it was something to be done, but actually to look upon bilingualism as a resource, as a positive potential to enable people to be who they are. Now, over here, what happens? After the Cold War and after the First and Second World Wars, we see that there was a blurring of the boundaries of nation states. Now look at how things are today. So you have a problem over here in Pakistan, or you have a problem in Afghanistan, and you have a problem for instance, in Myanmar. The boundaries or the problem somehow filters across boundaries, and several nations who are not directly in contact with that country or with the politics of that country become involved. This is because the growing communication, the ways we travel so fast, the way the technology has enabled us to form different communities which are beyond the communities of the nation state, enable us to come together and somehow align ourselves with the imagined communities that we have in mind, and somehow to re-identify ourselves with a global community rather than their own national states only. So this, of course, brought into question the role of languages itself. Now the question is, how important are languages in enabling that kind of communication with people across the boundaries of our states? So if we understand that this communication for somebody living in today's world is extremely important, then learning of the languages that other people know also becomes very important. And that means that bilingualism now becomes a resource. That is, it is a resource that enables us to connect with people we would like to do business, connect with people whom we identify ourselves in terms of politics, and connect with people to support them in a cause that we believe to be right and justified. So all this has led to an understanding that bilingualism, of course, is a right, but more than that, this is actually a potential of a resource for social capital, generating social networks. So languages now were emphasized again in UNESCO in 2003, a resolution that was passed now emphasized that languages in education were for local participation as well as global participation. So no longer are we just concerned about a country only and how the people are able to sort of get involved in the wider participatory processes. We are involved in today's individual, that how much he or she can become involved as a global citizen. So this concept of global citizenship emerges, and with that, the languages of that globe also become important. So we then talk about multilingual education for linguistically distinct communities. We accept them. And this is even more important thinking of the migration patterns across the globe. Look at the conflict, look at the large influx of refugees, look at the large influx of immigration, people who constantly are now what we call transnationals, They're going to a country, they're coming back to their own country, they are sort of like traveling back and forth. They are citizens of not just one country, but multiple countries. That means that multilingual education is very, very important to cater to the needs of those populations that have migrated into the country. Now, UNESCO has 3 principles on the basis of which it is encouraging a multilingual education. First of all, it says that for a child, it re-emphasizes that mother tongue instruction is extremely important in the early stages of education and schooling. And that is not just because of it is a right, but because it is a support, it is a resource for quality education, for clarification of the concepts that a child has to be taught. So to give the child those abstract concepts, we need to explain them to the child in a language that he or she understands. The second principle that it advocates is that bilingual education means equality. Now, bilingual education in terms of equality does not just mean that, yes, give them concepts that the children would understand. That means that when we bring the other languages into the school, we legitimize diversity. We build in a kind of tolerance within the school system in which other children also, who may belong to the dominant cultural groups, they realize that it is not a deficit to have a different language, and that kind of difference is only rich, and it enriches their own language. So bilingualism or bilingual education, not just for the ethnic communities that might be minorities, but also for the majority of the people who are there. So they are better able to understand each other and are ready to give each other the kind of equal respect that is the right of all the citizens. And then multilingual education, the resolution says, or the principle says, is extremely important for intercultural understanding. So it is not just enough for us now to tolerate each other, but it's important to understand each other, to actually keep those lines of communication open. And that's where your bilingual education comes in.